gonna let you make the motion for, closed executive session,
Back in session.
and we're back in session at 7:48. You want to make a motion?
There was a motion to backfill 3 police positions. And the motion's on the floor to backfill the 3 positions.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion?
Any discussion?
Chief, could you just clarify why we're doing this?
Yes. So I want to make this very clear that these are backfill positions, that we are not adding new positions here, okay? They are a backfill position from October of 2017 when Officer Berlew resigned. There is a backfill of the Officer Peck resignation that I just stated, okay? And then there is going to be a backfill on April of 2018 of a retirement of Sergeant Investigator Calabrese. So this police academy where we have to send these cadets starts the 12th, which is Monday. And they go through an extensive academy and then have 12 to 16 weeks of field training before they're even available for us on their own. So it's quite a process to hire an officer and get them out and on their own. And these are not new hires. We have no intentions of hiring any additional police officers. We're looking to just maintain the current staff that we've had.
I'd like to add to that that's what I believe in is public safety. When I see the population at this time, it's on a decline. I like to see it stay where it was. And I think if we ever get to a point where we're going to add officers, we'd all get together and talk about it before we just started adding more people. But my stand has always been that I don't want to lay anybody off, and if there is a position that's available, I would like to backfill it. So it's been a bad night for spending money, but you know, hopefully that's. So I guess I need a second.
Chief, thanks for the explanation.
You're welcome. These positions are budgeted for and have been budgeted for. I want to make that clear. So we've not been paying Officer Berlew since October, and then Officer Peck's resignation just recently. So these are all in anticipation just to backfill current budgeted positions.
One other thing, are the new candidates here?
They are, and I'd like to introduce them.
Would you like to bring them in?
Well, I would like to go through the process first.
Oh,
First approval.
We're sorry.
Yeah.
sorry, I apologize.
Hey. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. You want to take a roll call, or can I say that's 4?
4 to 1.
4 yes and 1
no.
nay.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. So the first recruit that I would like to introduce is Nicholas Camacho. Nicholas, if you could come in. He's age 22 from Newark, New York, graduated high school with an advanced Regents diploma. Nick also holds a criminal justice bachelor's degree from SUNY Brockport and has previously worked in 2017 as a seasonal police officer in Ocean City Department in Maryland. We're very excited to have Nick on board. Our second is Andrew Hilker, age 31 from Lodi, New York. Andrew. He's graduate high school with a Regents diploma from Ithaca High School. Hilker also holds a physical edge bachelor's degree from SUNY Portland and a master's degree in recreation education from SUNY Portland. Again, we're very excited to have Andrew on board. And our third candidate is Jacob DeChick. Jacob, he's age 20 from Waterloo, New York. Graduated high school with a Regents diploma from Waterloo High School. This chick holds an associate's degree in fire protection technology from Monroe Community College. The chick is also a volunteer firefighter at Oaks Corners Fire Department and a certified EMT currently working with North Seneca Ambulance and Finger Lakes Ambulance. So these are our 3 new officers for the Seneca Falls Police
And at
Department.
this time, I would like to wish you the best at cadet school, and on behalf of the town of Seneca Falls, welcome.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the water and sewer credits.
I'll second. I'll make a
Scott.
motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded, discussion, all in favor?
Actually, sorry, I didn't respond quickly. That's these?
Yes.
Why are we refunding something from 1984?
Because we owe it to them.
It was a
Do we have a
deposit.
representative? We don't. This came to my attention, there was a couple came in and indicated that they had, I believe, returned a meter, and we acknowledge receipt, whatever, that meter is here, but they never got the refund. We clearly owe it, but they didn't know what to do, and then finally they came down and said, how do we get this? And it's pretty obvious from the records that whatever was issued at the time has been returned. They apparently are certainly entitled to it. Nobody knew how to get this, and I finally said, just put it on for board review, and if we have board approval of it, it answers any audit questions of why we did it. Nobody disputes the fact that this hookup fee should have been returned, and it clearly, from our books and records, has not been, and the claim seems quite genuine, and there wasn't much. The other one's duplicate payment. So I think we're wrong on both issues. So under the circumstances, the best way to get around an audit issue of why we did it was simply to have a board approval to say that's why we did it.
Sure, thank you.
Okay.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
I'll second it.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Special order of day?
Greg, I have one more thing,
Yeah.
and I can turn it into a motion to amend the agenda if you'd like.
No.
All right, I'm going to stick to the script because that's what I'm doing.
Well, actually, I'm going to rule you out of order tonight, Doug, because motion of the day was made, and that's not debatable. And so,
I'm
let's
sorry,
vote
say
on
it.
a motion of the day to, motion of the day was made. It's not debatable. I made it. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
On January 24th, the supervisor sent a memo to all department heads prohibiting communication between employees and members of the town board unless they first made an appointment so that he and his confidential secretary would be present. Both the New York Department of State and the Legal Department of the Association of Towns have affirmed that a town supervisor doesn't have the authority to single-handedly create such a policy. This development, coupled with the supervisor's stated decision that he and the deputy supervisor would be solely responsible for all board committees this year, clearly indicates that the supervisor is attempting to cut off legitimate communication between town employees and the board members who are charged with the task of making informed decisions. Therefore, I move that a policy be created, enacted, and put in place that guarantees the right and responsibility for free, open, and unfettered communication between town employees and individual members of the Seneca Falls Town Board, and that prohibits the supervisor from compromising that right by placing conditions on such communication.
I'll second that.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Thank you. And Vic second, okay.
I think you had a follow-up conversation with the attorney on that. And
You want me to address that?
I would like,
Well, that's
Are we in discussion?
deplorable.
we're in discussion.
It came, Doug, you came in to see me and asked me about the genesis of that, and
All
I
right,
think
first of all, let's get it straight. First of all, Greg threw me out of his office when I went to him to see if this could be settled somewhere other than in this forum. And then you pulled me into your office.
I pulled you.
Yeah, I was leaving.
Oh,
So, and I didn't object, but I didn't initiate a meeting. I tried to get Greg to withdraw that memo in private so that it didn't end up out here. And he threw me out of his office.
I tried, you made an ultimatum to me.
I said that if we didn't deal with it there, we'd be dealing with it here.
That's not what you told me, Dave.
Yes, it is.
Can I intervene again?
It's deplorable.
Absolutely. That's why we come to these meetings, to have this
Deplorable.
transparency. Thank you, Doug.
What's that?
We come to these meetings because of this lack
Oh,
of transparency.
absolutely, absolutely. I'm just saying that I don't feel as though it shouldn't be argumentative between the supervisor and the town council. The motion was made, maybe we should move on instead of,
I hope you learn from this,
me.
the town board.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no discussion between town board members and the audience. Please, this is the discussion here. I don't feel that town employees, especially department heads, should be brought into a political fray. And when town councilmen come in and discuss things with them, some of them have come to me and said they become upset, they become concerned, they don't know what to tell them, they feel their jobs are on the line. Been told that specifically, and so I feel that the best way to avoid those political frays between a councilman and a paid employee is to make sure that if we're going to be talking to department heads, we as a board talk to them as one and not as individuals. Because we all have to hear the same thing at the same time, in the same real time. And if that's not done, then we're all basing our decisions on possible different information that we're getting from staff, dependent on what they think that we want to hear at that time. That's a normal reaction of a staff member. And that was my reason for the memo, period. And I think I'm on solid ground with that. I'm not asking employees not to give up information. I'm asking that the town councilmen get that information and all members of this board get it at the same time, because we're getting different information dependent upon what that staff feels the councilman wants to learn. And we could have discussed that as to the reasons for my memo, but Mr. Avery made an ultimatum with me: rescind the memo, or I'll take it public. Well, he took it public, and I stand by what I said. And that would have been a dialogue with him, and I feel I feel strongly about that, and I want us to all get the same information at the same time.
If there's a staff member who's uncomfortable, if we create a policy, which is what I asked, then that the rights of that employee to have someone else there, whether it's just someone else or you and your secretary, that can be protected. The fact that all board members should receive the same information can be protected in a policy. As far as interpretation, I think you're going to have to leave that to the fact that we're all adults in the room, and we can handle that maybe, that the exact same words aren't necessarily used every time somebody meets. But we're all big people here.
Can I respond to that?
Well, can I?
I'd like to respond to it. You say we're all adults in the room, and yet you interpret my walking down the hall with you as pulling you into my office, which frankly, are you joking?
I didn't initiate a meeting.
So the bottom line is, I attempted to explain to you the rationale for having such a policy, which is quite frequent in most of the towns and municipalities around here and in New York State. There have been repetitive claims of workplace hostility in many jurisdictions, which is initiated by board members just walking in during the day and sitting down with an employee. And of course, they say, well, they didn't object. Of course, they're not going to object. They work for you. And at the same time, they don't know how their information is going to be used. And it's generally considered as a practice in many union negotiations to say, if at any time an elected person is going to sit down and speak with an employee, that the employee be given some kind of notice, that they have the opportunity to say, could I have somebody else here? If they are a department head or a supervisor, that they at least be able to have somebody witness what is going on so they don't find themselves in that kind of position. Your interpretation tonight of my attempting to explain that to you, being termed as being pulled into an office, is the exact thing that an employee would feel nervous about, because frankly, you're making something out of nothing and you're defining something that happened. And frankly, I'm absolutely shocked that you would even have the gall to claim that you got pulled into any office.
All right, I apologize for the use of the word pulled, because there was nothing physically
I
involved.
accept the
But I
apology.
didn't
What I
initiate the
don't
meeting.
like is your mischaracterization of judgment. And that's the whole reason that you don't have somebody go into somebody's office where you just walk in during the day, sit down and say, I want to discuss this with you. Do you think they're going to say no to you? And do you think you're putting them in an uncomfortable position? And yes, some employees here have come and said they don't like that contact. So what do you want to do? Maybe when the board gets sued, you will then turn around and say, how did this happen? How did it happen? Because of exactly the attitude you're displaying now.
Then we create a policy that protects.
Right?
Mr. Foster, may I say one thing?
You're out of order, Mr.
I understand
Swire.
that. I'm asking Mr. Foster.
No, I'm ruling you're out of order.
He did away with committees.
I did not do away with committees.
Sure sounds like it.
I did not do away committees. I have everyone's recommendation of committees. I don't have to answer you.
Can I
You're out
speak?
of order.
Can I speak? I've been on the board 4 years, all right? And as trustee in the village. You've been on 2 years. Vic has been on 2 years. Doug is new, you've been on 2 years. I've never had any problem in all the years on this board or as a trustee of the village of going to talk to employees. I don't know where this all came about, but for 4 years I've never had a problem. All of a sudden now, this comes about, I don't know why. You know, it's just plain crazy to me. I mean, if somebody doesn't want to talk to you, then they just say, well, I don't want to talk about it, and you walk away. I've gone to some employees and asked them about something, they say, well, I really don't want to say anything because I don't want to get in trouble. Okay, and I just walk away and that's it. But then sometimes a person, one of the employees, will talk to you about an issue, and you listen to them, and maybe Vic talks to them, or maybe Louis talks to them, or Greg talks to them. You know, I still cannot see why we cannot go and talk to an employee. It's just crazy. It's like we're trying to hide something or something.
I just wanted to say is that, I mean, how many complaints, this is the first I've heard if there's been any complaints by anybody feeling intimidated. I would much rather, like I said, have a policy. Maybe there's certain situations or whatever, but I think that common sense, maybe not, would dictate if it's something sensitive to go to talk to somebody about. But if it's just about some issue or whatever that's not that important, I can't, you know, call the recreation director and ask him, hey, you know, I heard this or whatever, and it's not about anybody or anything, but he's just giving me general information, And it sounds like to me that each time I'm gonna have to make an appointment and go through this whole thing or whatever to get some information that really is just kind of, just general information. I really think that I would much rather work together with everybody here to come up with a policy and try to come up and say, these are everyday kind of questions or whatever that aren't gonna threaten anybody. You know, are you gonna buy a Bobcat? Is that in the budget? How much does it cost? It sounds like to me that if I talk to somebody, I'm gonna be in violation of your directive. So why not set up a policy and say, look, for general information, we can do that. And if we can come up with a consensus of, if it's something, a sensitive matter, then you need to be involved.
I have no problem with how you're explaining it. A policy would take time to develop, and I have no problem with that. But, and I'll go back to my days on the school board. When one school board member asked for information, every school board member had to get the question and the information that that school board member was asking for. Because people do use information, and people, staff have mentioned that to me, that they don't know what to do, they don't know how to answer it. So I said, I sent out a memo. The memo was by no means, I expected discussion with the memo. I didn't expect ultimatums and rescind it or not, but discussions. And then we could have, from there, we could have developed a policy. And that's what my internal memos are about. They're never for broad discussion with the community unless you want to start another drama school. So I guess, Doug, you started another drama school. I would have been very clearly supportive of starting a discussion of some kind of policy.
Can I offer a suggestion? We do have, the town does have retained counsel for employment, labor type law, okay? Perhaps it would be helpful, if he has to come down here for negotiations anyway, to have a board, an attorney-client meeting with that counsel as to best practices for boards, elected members, and dealing with employees. There are protocols, there are things, and I guess I've been in jurisdictions where I've seen what I consider frivolous suits brought simply because a council member or a board member or a legislator walked in and said to the person, I'd like to know more about what happened at this most recent incident. The person immediately left work and then filed a claim and said they refused to come back because that it was a hazardous situation for their emotional health. And that was the start of a claim. I would just ask you to speak with a professional in the employment field as to saying, when should an employee deal with somebody on the other end of the chain of command? I think you'll find it an enlightening conversation. For those of you who have worked in private industry, if a shareholder or if a officer of the corporation walked in and started speaking to somebody in the warehouse, the person is going to say, well, I don't know what to say to you, and they may not say anything. They apparently feel a little safe in some ways in coming and saying something to me by saying, I don't know how to answer this and I don't want to get in any trouble. And I just basically say to them, if at any point you feel that you have been put in the place, just simply get up and walk out of the room and walk down and tell the supervisor that you want to have a meeting. So to avoid that kind of a situation, I'm trying to follow what is best practices, and the response that seems to be coming is, we've always done it this way. The best way to get in trouble in today's world is to do it the way you've always done it. Okay?
Right, so that's why the consensus here so far has been create a policy to avoid that kind of situation where people are dealing with things on the fly. And we're saying protect the responsibility and the need for a communication, particularly with department heads, but also protect the rights of the employee if they don't want to speak one-on-one with a town board member. A policy can do that.
Perhaps it would be easier to just follow a chain of command and recognize that you're an elected official and these people work, and there are the workplace rules, and then there are the opinions of the people who are voting on that, and some people don't feel comfortable with that. That's why I'm just saying, if you check best practices, most employment attorneys are gonna tell you, what are you even doing here? That's the response you're gonna get when you explain that scenario. They're gonna say, what were you thinking? So, it's not my expertise in my area, but I know enough from doing this for 38 years. It's the surest way to get into a confrontation with an employee who probably has another agenda, but is gonna realize that issue as the token to create the issue. So, I'm just saying that there are protocols you ought to consider, and everything is perception. And it's just the perfect example is tonight. You know, perception is everything. I had a conversation with you walking down the hall, stepped into my office, and the next thing I know, I'm to the public, I'm pulling you into my office. I mean, perception is everything. And if you felt that way, if you felt I was pulling you into my 4x7 cubicle, then I apologize. I won't, it's small enough. Believe me, it's the smallest office in the building. So, if you felt that way, Doug, I'm sorry.
No, I said I didn't object to the meeting, but I didn't initiate it.
Thank you.
I followed you at your advice into your office.
Okay, if you want to present the policy, present one,
There's a motion.
and present one at a later meeting, and we'll motion it, we'll second it, we'll discuss it, and we'll vote on it.
I think there's a motion on the
You
floor.
already got a motion.
He wants to make a policy, but I'm sure he doesn't have the words that are correct.
We made a motion to make a policy.
The policy be made.
The
Okay.
policy be made, okay. I have no objections to a policy being made, but I think that takes time and effort
In the
and
meantime,
discussion.
we'll still be able to talk to employees.
I wrote an internal memo to you guys. If you guys want to make that public, you can make it public.
Well, they did.
Under no, but, you know, when I receive a memo, I go and talk to that person. You chose not to.
No, Greg, I chose,
No, you made an ultimatum to me.
after a lengthy discussion,
Like 5 minutes, you made an ultimatum to me. Differences of opinion, differences of opinion. We're not going to solve that tonight. I hope we get to work better together in the future. That's a difference of opinion. Yes, I did ask you to leave, and I was very angry when I asked you to leave because you made an ultimatum. But that said, if we vote to make a policy, then the policy, that someone is going to have to present that policy. And we're going to discuss it, and then we're going to vote on it, like any other policy.
of course.
So for now, if I come down to the office and I want to talk to Nikki, I gotta go tell her we gotta go up and talk with you too.
Come and talk to me about that another time. I'm not prepared to discuss
I mean,
that.
I come down in the morning, when I come down there, I stop at Nikki's office first. Then I stop over at Bev and see Cassandra.
Nikki's an
and
elected
Sarah.
official. She can talk to anyone she wants to.
All right, but then I go over to Bev
Yeah.
and Sarah, then I head over into Stephanie, then I go over to your office.
I believe that you guys are adults and you know the intent of the issue, and anyone of sound mind knows the intent of that issue, not to get someone into a political bailiwick in the office as an employee. And that's what employees are upset about. So that's the intent of the memo. You guys understood that. You're educated. You're smart individuals. I think
If
you know
Nikki's
what the
elected
intent
official,
was.
she can talk, why can't the rest of the elected officials talk, speak?
And so I'm
It's
going
not a forum.
I'm going to take a vote on Doug's motion to have a resolution on this. And so the question is called. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Make a
There's
move.
that 5-0 vote. Have a, to do a policy.
Yeah. And I make a motion to adjourn.
What, can I add one more thing? Sorry. It was said that you and I were gonna head all the departments.
Yeah.
I have a hard time running my water and sewer. I would like to see that Doug take over the two or whatever it was that Tom
Okay.
had.
Well, you got the committee list anyways that we asked for.
I'm sorry, I apologize, I missed last month's meeting. I
And
personally had it, but maybe you already did that.
I
still believe in committees.
I never intended to do that.
Do away with committees?
Do away with committees.
Okay.
I never said that.
I mean, that was the rumor that you're gonna do away with the
Well,
committees.
what's a rumor?
Yeah.
What's a rumor?
Geez, Lou thought it was-
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. All
I
opposed?
think it was the second one.